I've been a correctional officer for many years, working in facilities across Texas and Michigan. The oldest prison I ever worked at, located in Michigan, recently began shutting down, which got me reflecting on the paranormal experiences I've had there and at other prisons throughout my career. I'd like to share some of the most striking supernatural encounters I've experienced while working in these facilities. Before I started this job, I never really believed in ghosts, but that changed quickly. My first job was at an intake facility in Texas, where I worked the night shift, from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. for 12 hours at a stretch. One of my earliest eerie experiences happened in a lower security housing unit. While finishing my rounds, I was chatting with my partner when we heard a loud banging noise around 3 a.m. At that hour, no prisoners should have been out of their bunks. I asked my partner, an older officer, if they knew what was causing the sound. They told me plainly that the unit was haunted. They pointed out that the noise was coming from the door of a small, quiet cell in a hallway not directly visible from our station. Apparently, a prisoner had died in that cell after choking on food from a sack lunch provided by officers at the time. I was skeptical about the haunting claim, so I decided to investigate. As I approached the door, the banging grew louder, and I could see the door visibly shaking, as if someone was pounding on it from the inside. But there was no one that could have been causing it. I was speechless. Later that night, when I checked the door again, I noticed a steamed-up handprint on the glass window of the door. It was an unsettling, unexplainable moment that left me rattled. Another incident occurred at the same Texas facility, but in a different housing unit. Around 1 or 2 a.m., I was in the officer station, monitoring the cameras while talking with my partner. On one of the screens, I clearly saw a prisoner sitting at a table in the day room. I turned to look directly at the day room, but no one was there. I asked my partner to check it out, since no one should have been out of bed. Meanwhile, I rewound the camera footage to see where the prisoner might have gone. To my shock, the figure on the camera slowly faded away and vanished completely. When my partner returned, we watched the footage repeatedly, both of us stunned by what we were seeing. Later that same night, during my rounds, I noticed a wet floor sign that had been left out. I returned it to the porter closet, but when I got back to the officer station and glanced back, the same sign was out again. I asked my partner if they were messing with me, but they denied touching it. I went back, put the sign away again, and locked the closet door this time. When I returned to the station, the sign was back out in the open. As my partner and I stared at it, the sign began to tilt slowly, lifting 2 of its legs off the ground. Then it slammed down and slid back up the hallway to the front of the closet door before stopping. Terrified, we refused to leave the officer's station for the rest of the night. Another notable experience from Texas happened while I was working in an administrative segregation unit, a high-security area for prisoners who repeatedly caused trouble or got into fights. We had a prisoner in a close observation cell, typically used for those who threatened self-harm. In the summer, some prisoners would claim to be suicidal just to be placed in these cells because they were cooler, thanks to nearby AC vents that regular units didn't have. This prisoner admitted that's why they were there, and assured me they didn't want to cause issues. Later that night, while watching the cameras with my partner, we saw a shadow moving across the floor. It eventually reached the close observation cell and slipped under the door. I went to check on the prisoner, who was pacing inside. When I asked if they were okay, they said something felt off and that they were hearing voices. I tried to calm them down, and they eventually lay on the bed. But later, my partner called for assistance because the prisoner had attempted to harm themselves. Apparently, they were holding their wrists above their head and speaking in tongues. I didn't witness that part myself, but given everything else I'd seen at this facility and knowing my partner's credibility, I believed it. When I started working at prisons in Michigan, I was assigned to a facility built in 1877, one of the oldest still operating in the U.S. At the time, though it's now closing, I had countless small paranormal experiences, their doors slamming, disembodied voices, sudden cold chills, but they're too numerous to detail. One significant incident happened around Christmas during the third shift. I was working in the oldest unit at the facility, which was usually empty, but had been opened to separate prisoners during the COVID pandemic. We were short-staffed, so I was alone, and another officer set up a TV to keep me entertained, since I was far from the other units with no one to talk to. I spent most of the night doing rounds and watching TV in between. Suddenly, I heard a banging noise coming from a door leading to a hallway that connected to an even older, condemned part of the prison. I opened the door and looked down the hallway, feeling a cold breeze that made the hairs on my arms stand on end. Thoroughly unnerved, I closed the door and sat back down to watch TV. But then the TV started flipping through channels rapidly before stopping on static. I was so shaken that I had to be moved to a different unit for the rest of the shift. Another time, during the third shift, a work friend and I had positions that gave us a lot of free time and no prisoners to supervise. We decided to explore the prison, wandering through the tunnels beneath it, the old barns and the unstaffed gun towers. Eventually, we ventured into the old condemned section I'd encountered before. A large metal gate, about halfway down the hallway, had to be opened with a big skeleton key to access this area. My friend explained that this part used to be the old segregation unit. We used flashlights since the section was so old it had no power. The atmosphere back there was heavy, filling me with an overwhelming sense of dread I'll never forget. I asked my friend to head back, and as we approached the gate, his flashlight suddenly died, leaving us in near pitch blackness. Then we heard something running toward us. We bolted, my friend fumbling with the key, as the sound grew closer. We managed to get the gate open, sprinted out, and later noticed red claw marks all over my friend's arms. It was a terrifying experience, one I hope to never repeat. Years ago, an incident in a provincial park still haunts me and keeps me up at night. I was walking through the hills with my dog during winter, and the sun set much faster than I expected. Before I could get back to my car, it was completely dark. As I carefully made my way through a field, I was suddenly overcome with a gut-wrenching feeling that I was being watched in undeniable primal instinct. I turned around and saw a figure in the distance, darker than the night sky around us. The moment I saw him, my stomach dropped and my body froze. I knew instinctively that he was coming for me. I grabbed my dog's leash and we ran as fast as we could, sprinting up and down hills, weaving around trees and down embankments. I was running for my life, and to this day, I'm convinced my survival depended on it. A 30 to 45-minute journey took me just 10 minutes as I raced toward my car. The final obstacle was a switchback path I had to climb to reach the top where my car was parked. I gave it everything I had, running up the path as fast as possible. When I reached the top and looked back, I saw the same figure chasing me. Instead of taking the switchback like a normal person, he sprinted straight up the middle, heading directly for me. I screamed at him to leave me alone, but he didn't say a word, just kept running toward me. I was incredibly lucky my car was at the top. In a moment, straight out of a horror movie, I dropped my keys while fumbling to unlock the door. I managed to get it open, threw my dog inside, and slammed the door shut just as the man reached us. The strangest part was that there were no other vehicles parked nearby except for his truck, which was right next to mine. He jumped into his truck with alarming speed, gunned the engine, and sped off like a bat out of hell, black smoke pouring from the exhaust as he left skid marks behind. I sat in my car for hours afterward, shaking and crying, knowing how close I'd come to whatever he had planned for me. Sharing this story to urge others not to ignore their gut feelings, that little voice telling you to run. If I hadn't listened that day, I might not have noticed him in time or had the head start I needed to escape. Trust your instincts. They could be the difference between life and death. About a decade ago, I worked the night shift as a prep cook at a travel center in New Mexico, where I had several strange experiences I'd like to share. The first was fairly typical. While chopping onions, I saw a figure out of the corner of my eye walk past me and stop in the corner. When I turned to look, no one was there, and a chilling sensation ran down my spine, making the base of my back go ice cold. To give some context, my family has a history with the paranormal. My great-grandmother was a medium, and I used to see shadow figures regularly in my childhood home until I was about 15. They reappeared when I was in a deep depression with suicidal tendencies, though I'm in a much better place now in my early 20s. That spine-chilling feeling has always accompanied these experiences, serving as a sign that something supernatural is near. After that first incident, I asked around, and it turned out others had experienced the same thing. 3 or 4 co-workers described seeing a dark figure at the edge of their vision that disappeared when they looked directly at it. It happened to me occasionally after that, but I learned to ignore it. The second experience wasn't a one-time event, but something that happened regularly, often after glimpsing the figure again. As a prep cook, I'd make large batches of soup and chili for the next day. I'd put 5-gallon pots on the burners to brown the meat, turn to chop vegetables, and when I turned back, all the burners would be off. It was a small thing, but it happened too often to be a mistake, and it was always accompanied by that same chill down my spine. The final incident happened to someone else, but I was present to explain the layout. Our walk-in fridge had a door in the prep kitchen, and inside the walk-in was a second door leading to the freezer. The freezer's light switch was in the main walk-in fridge. One night, a line cook went into the walk-in, and I didn't think much of it. A few minutes later, he came out, visibly shaken, and looked like he wanted to confront me. After I calmed him down, he explained that while he was in the freezer, the light suddenly turned off, and he heard a man laughing from the main walk-in area. I assured him it wasn't me. I'd been in the kitchen the whole time, and no one else had gone in. He went pale and refused to talk about it further. Those are my experiences from the truck stop. Thankfully, I don't have much contact with the paranormal now that I'm in a better mental space, but I have a few other stories from my time in New Mexico that I might share later. For now, it feels good to get this off my chest, and I appreciate you listening.